3 doors behind the first, a trusted tool turns traitor. Behind the second, a billion-watt storm born from baby monitors and backyard cameras. Behind the third, a familiar login box hiding a secret that followed people for years. Tonight, we open all 3 and we don't look away. Case File 1, a routine download that wasn't routine at all. Imagine this, you're cleaning your computer. You choose a utility everyone recommends, a name you've seen in forums and tech guides, signed and official. A neat installer, a familiar logo, the green checkmark that says everything is fine. It wasn't fine. In late summer 2017, attackers pulled off a move as old as manufacturing and as modern as a build server supply chain compromise. That phrase sounds complex, but the idea is painfully simple. If you can't reach 1 million users directly, poison what they trust. Slip your code into the factory faucet and watch the clean water do the rest. Here's how it unfolded. Developers packaged a new version of a widely used cleanup tool and published it through the standard update process. The installer carried a valid digital signature, the kind of seal people associate with safety. But hidden inside the installer, a small passenger woke up quietly. The first stage was a reconnaissance piece. Think of it like a clipboard with a checklist. It looked around the machine, collected identifiers, and phoned home to a remote control server. Most of the time, that was it. The code went to sleep, trying not to attract attention, because the real goal wasn't every machine. It was a handful of very specific ones. Over a span of weeks, millions installed the compromised version. Around 2.7 million by most accounts. Then the attackers started sorting the flood. From the telemetry, they filtered out the interesting signal systems inside major technology companies, high-value networks, places where a second stage would matter. Those select machines received a different payload, tailored to dig in, persist, and give deeper access. It was not chaos, it was curation. The discovery didn't start with a dramatic explosion. It started with pattern recognition. Network defenders saw odd traffic from otherwise ordinary computers, telemetry that didn't fit. Analysts traced it back to the installer, and the message became clear. The build pipeline had been compromised. The company behind the tool responded, pushed clean versions, revoked certificates, and worked with investigators. But the damage had already crossed the distribution threshold. Trusted mirrors and update mechanisms had done what they were built to do: deliver software. Supply chain attacks feel unfair because they exploit the very systems designed to keep us safe. Code signing is supposed to mean authenticity, not invincibility. A signature can confirm that the software came from the place you think it did. It cannot promise that the place itself wasn't already under someone else's hand. That's the first lesson in this case. File trust is not a lock. It is a ladder. Climb far enough, and it can take you anywhere. Technically, the trick was subtle, a small loader that avoided flashing red on antivirus dashboards. Operationally, the trick was bold: turn a popular product into a distribution network for espionage. The numbers tell the story: millions exposed to stage 1. A carefully chosen few receiving stage 2. The impact measured not just in infected endpoints, but in the message it sent to every defender: look upstream. The breach didn't begin at the keyboard, it began at the build. If you want the timeline, it's this: intrusion into a development environment. Poison build, signed release, mass distribution, telemetry harvesting. Targeted secondary infections, detection by researchers. Emergency updates and cleanup, and behind each step, a plain reality. We rely on software supply lines the way a city relies on water. When the filter is compromised, the whole network becomes a delivery mechanism. But we move to the next door, and the hum gets louder. It sounds like wind, only it's not, it's packets. A storm made of tiny requests, hurled from tens of thousands of impatient devices, until the world's address book starts choking. Case File 2, the day the internet felt heavy. October 2016, people woke up and found that familiar sites refused to load. The spinning wheel spun, links failed open. There wasn't a virus on your laptop. There wasn't a glitch in your browser. The target was upstream, a service most people never think about: DNS, the domain name system. DNS is the phone book of the internet. You type a name, it returns a number, and your device knows who to talk to. Knock out the phone book and nothing knows where to go. The attackers didn't use a single monster computer. They used a puppet army of botnet of hacked cameras, routers, and digital video recorders. The malware behind it had a name: Mirai. If supply chain attacks poisoned the faucet, Mirai kicked open back doors that manufacturers left unlocked. It scanned the internet for devices that still used default usernames and passwords, the kind shipped from the factory admin, root 12,345, and the like. When it found one, it let itself in, implanted a small program, and enlisted the device into a growing crowd. The owners of those devices likely never noticed anything different. Their baby monitors still showed the crib. Their security cameras still rolled, but in the background, those devices were ready to follow orders. When the command came, the botnet pointed that crowd at DNS providers and shouted, all at once. These weren't human-readable essays. These were tiny requests designed to overwhelm. Flood someone with more requests than they can handle, and it's like clogging a road with bumper-to-bumper traffic. No one moves. That's a distributed denial of service attack, a DDoS. Distributed because the traffic comes from everywhere at once. Denial of service because, for the target, the line is to jam to let anyone through. Mirai broke records. Traffic measured in the hundreds of gigabits per second, even pushing into the terabit range. Some attacks aimed at journalists and hosts. One famously slammed a DNS provider and indirectly affected access to major websites across large regions for hours. The attack exposed a brittle truth: the internet's reliability rests on a few concentrated services. The old design promised redundancy. The modern economy rewards efficiency. And efficiency concentrates. Why did Mirai work? Not because the code was genius, because the physics of scale worked in its favor. If you can turn 100,000 small devices into an amplifier, you don't need each device to be strong. You just need them to be obedient. The entry point was human habit. People plugged devices in and never changed the defaults. Manufacturers valued ease of setup and shipped universal credentials. Telnet and web interfaces sat exposed to the open internet. Every step of that ladder was convenient until convenience was weaponized. After the biggest attacks, the authors of Mirai did something that seems reckless. They released the source code online. Some say it was to throw law enforcement off by flooding the field. Some say it was pride. Either way, it meant copycats and variants. A blueprint for botnets became public, and the game turned into whack-a-mole. Internet service providers hardened filters, defenders built scrubbing centers to absorb floods, and manufacturers promised better defaults. But that promise moves slowly through warehouses and boxes. The botnets learned new tricks. A fragile equilibrium held together by just enough vigilance. There's a quiet irony in botnet stories. The devices that form the army rarely understand they were ever soldiers. The people who own them don't get a ransom note. They get a slightly warmer router and the knowledge that somewhere, sometime, their gear was part of something enormous. It's a different kind of victimhood, ambient, anonymous, and part of the crowd that never met. And yet, every device in that crowd belonged to someone who could have changed a password. If you're still here, if the way these case files peel back the curtain pulls you in, this is the moment we keep going together. Subscribe and stay with us. These stories are warnings, and the next episodes carry the same quiet urgency. Door 3 looks harmless, almost cozy, a login page, a brand people recognized. A breach that started small, then grew taller shadows with time. What was stolen wasn't code or servers, it was the keys people use everywhere else. Case File 3, a password leak that refused to stay in 2012. That year, attackers made off with a trove of hashed passwords from a major professional networking site. The company's systems stored those passwords using a hashing algorithm, a one-way transformation that turns your password into a string of characters. Hashing is supposed to protect you even if someone steals the database, but the armor matters. Strip away the jargon, and here's the issue. The site used an aging algorithm and didn't add a unique salt to each password. A salt is like a pinch of randomness that makes identical passwords look different in the database. Without it, password 1 to 3 looks the same for everyone who chose it. That's an attacker's dream. When samples from the stolen set surfaced on forums, hobbyists and professionals alike cracked many of them quickly. People choose predictable passwords. Attackers know the patterns. With no salt and a weak algorithm, they could test guesses at high speed and compare the resulting hashes. Many fell. The immediate impact was password resets at the affected site. But the longer story took years to unfold. In 2016, a larger dataset, over 100 million credentials tied to that same breach, was traded and sold online. Email addresses paired with cracked passwords became the basic ingredients for a technique called credential stuffing. That name sounds almost playful. It's not. It's when attackers take the same email and password and try them on other services. Banking, shopping, email, streaming, anywhere people reused the same combination. Think about it, if you use the same key for your house, your car, your office, and your storage unit, a single copy opens everything. Credential stuffing is what happens when every lock is a familiar shape. Attackers don't need to guess correctly, they just need you to have reused. Brute force becomes simple, automation does the rest. The victims in the long tail of this breach weren't just the users of that original site. They were the people whose other accounts began to behave strangely months or years later. Logins from unfamiliar cities, order confirmations they didn't recognize. Password reset emails arriving unprompted, a leak with momentum, rolling downhill into every service where habits stayed the same. The company hardened their systems, adopted stronger hashing, reset passwords, and urged caution. But the data was already in the wild. Once a dataset like that circulates, it's like glitter from a broken ornament. It never fully goes away. The timeline reads like a lesson in inertia. Initial theft and quiet extraction in 2012, partial exposure and rapid cracking. A longer quiet, then the big resurfacing in 2016 with expanded datasets and automated abuse. The core weakness wasn't that people forgot their passwords. It was that passwords alone were never meant to carry the full weight of identity. And until multi-factor options became common, people's habits filled the gap with repetition. So we have 3 doors, 3 crimes, and 1 thread, convenience, leveraged against us. In the supply chain compromise, convenience meant trusting the pipeline and the signature without imagining the hands behind them could be compromised. In the botnet storm, convenience meant leaving devices as they arrived because setup should be simple and fast. In the credential saga, convenience meant using the same few passwords everywhere because our brains are not password managers. Now the part that matters when the screen goes dark and you're alone with your own devices. No platitudes, just 3 practical moves anyone can make, starting tonight. 1. Enable multi-factor authentication everywhere that matters. A code, a prompt, a hardware key, something beyond the password. It turns a stolen password from a skeleton key into a stuck door. 2. Use a password manager to make every password unique. No repeats, no patterns, no cute variations on a theme. If one site suffers a breach, you isolate the damage. 3. Change the defaults on anything you plug into your life routers, cameras, smart home devices, and update them regularly. A new name, a strong passphrase, automatic updates if offered. Don't let your gear become part of someone else's army. There's one more idea to carry with you, not as an action, but as a mindset. Trust is a thing you renew, not a thing you receive once and forget. Update your software not because you fear an invisible enemy, but because the people who build good tools are constantly closing doors the bad ones tried to open. Verify the source, check the prompt. Don't let speed and routine write the story for you. When a case file closes, it doesn't vanish. It becomes precedent. The Cleaner compromise teaches us to watch the upstream. Mirai reminds us that idle devices are not idle at all. The credential leak shows us how a password in 2012 can hurt a life in 2016 and beyond. None of these require panic, they require attention. The kind of attention that keeps your radius of trust small and your default settings short-lived. There is no perfect defense, but there are better habits. And while attackers scale with automation, so can you. A manager for your passwords is automation. Automatic updates are automation. Push notifications for logins are automation. The same tools that create scale for the bad can create resilience for the rest of us. We just have to choose that. In the end, all three doors were open because someone, somewhere, valued simplicity over scrutiny. That's not a moral failing, it's a human one, and it can be corrected, not by memorizing exploits or learning to code, but by asking a short list of questions whenever you touch a keyboard or a plug. Did I turn on multi-factor? Is this password unique? Did I change the defaults? If the answer is yes, you've already taken the teeth out of half the tactics in these case files. It won't make headlines, but it will close doors that strangers love to find ajar. And maybe next time, when the storm starts and the screen flickers, you'll recognize the pattern. Not with fear, but with the steady calm of someone who knows the shape of the threat and has chosen to be inconvenient to it.